It was nearly 9 p.m. when Miles Grant finished mopping the marble lobby floor of the Argent Tech Tower. The building's glass panels reflected the drizzle outside, city lights shimmering through the raindrops. The halls were empty, echoing slightly with every step he took. Miles, 67, moved without hurry, his motions steady and practiced. He wore a faded navy blue janitor's uniform, clean but worn at the seams, and his ID badge clipped neatly to the front pocket. A battered lunchbox and a thermos sat near the reception desk. He'd eat later, after the floors dried. He wiped his hands on a cloth and glanced once at the photo tucked inside his badge sleeve. A boy, maybe 10 years old, grinned next to a younger Miles, both standing beside a burnt-down house frame. He closed it gently and went back to work. Down the hallway, 2 new security guards entered through the rear employee entrance, their laughter loud in the quiet building. Both were in their late 20s, broad-shouldered, cocky, and newly assigned to the night shift. One wore a buzz cut and had his sleeves rolled to his elbows. The other chewed gum while scrolling on his phone. "That him?" the first one asked, nodding toward Miles. "Yup." "Guy's been walking around like he owns the place," the second replied, smirking. Miles paused, aware of their gaze, but not engaging. "Hey, old man," the buzz-cut guard called out. "You got clearance to be here?" Miles nodded once, calm. "I've worked here longer than most of the floors have existed." "Didn't ask for poetry." "Show us your ID." Miles walked over without protest and handed his badge forward. The guard barely glanced at it before handing it back with a smirk. "That's expired." "No, it's not. It renews annually every January." The gum-chewing guard stepped closer. "Where exactly you headed? Maintenance isn't supposed to be on this level after hours." "I'm finishing the north lobby. The schedule's been posted for weeks." The buzz-cut guard shook his head. "Haven't seen you before. You sure? You didn't sneak in?" Miles didn't react. "I have a key card. You can check the logs." "Maybe we will. Or maybe we'll ask you to wait here while we call in a supervisor." Miles set his mop aside and folded his hands in front of him. "You're free to do that." They didn't call. Instead, they circled him like they were sniffing out something wrong. "You always carry that lunchbox?" one asked. "Yes." "Mind opening it?" "I do, actually. Unless you suspect a threat, I'd prefer not to have my food examined." The gum popper laughed. "You think you got rights, janitor?" Miles met his eyes. "We all do. That's the whole idea." That answer annoyed them. They looked at each other, a silent exchange of challenge passing between them. One stepped back and spoke into the radio clipped to his shoulder. "We've got a potential trespasser on level 1, claims to be janitorial, requesting confirmation." Monty, line crackled. No one responded. Miles stayed still, not defensive, not nervous, just waiting. His boots were damp from the mop water, and his sleeves were rolled halfway up his forearms. Time moved slowly. The guards muttered between themselves. "You know," one said louder, "you don't talk like a janitor." Miles gave a faint nod. "I suppose that's your problem, not mine." That shut them up for a moment. Then the gum chewer snorted. "We'll see how tough you are when someone official shows up." "I'm not trying to be tough," Miles said softly. "I'm just tired." They didn't know what to say to that. The air grew heavier. The lobby lights dimmed slightly, an automated system adjusting for the hour. Rain pattered gently against the wide glass windows. Miles walked to the bench near the security desk and sat down, resting his arms on his knees. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't bothered. But he knew exactly what this was. It wasn't new. It wasn't surprising. But tonight would end differently. and they had no idea how. The security guards stood by the desk, posturing like gatekeepers of something far more important than a quiet lobby. They weren't checking logs or confirming anything. They were waiting, watching, enjoying the tension they had created. Miles remained seated, elbows on his knees, eyes calm, body language open but unreadable. One of the guards paced, in a short loop, chewing faster now, tapping his radio every few seconds like it would suddenly connect. The other leaned against the desk, arms crossed, studying Miles with the smug expression of someone who thought he'd found a reason to feel powerful. "You always work this late?" the pacing one asked, pretending to be casual. Miles didn't flinch. "Some nights are longer than others." "Right," the other muttered. "Just seems strange, man your age walking around this place after dark like it's yours." "Strange is usually a matter of perspective," Miles replied. That answer irked them. The pacing stopped. The silence hung just heavy enough to make them uncomfortable. "You got anyone who can vouch for you?" the gum chewer asked, squinting like he was solving a crime. Miles reached slowly into his pocket and took out a small flip phone. Not flashy, screen cracked slightly at the corner. He flipped it open, pressed a number, and held it to his ear. He didn't say anything at first, just listened, then quietly spoke. "Hey, it's Miles. Might need a quick word down at the front desk. They're having trouble remembering who I am." He hung up without waiting for a reply. The guards exchanged glances. "That's supposed to mean something," one of them asked. Miles stood up slowly, stretching slightly as he rose. "To you? Probably not yet." The guard near the desk scoffed. "You think a phone call's gonna change anything? You still haven't explained why your badge doesn't match the updated registry." "It's not supposed to," Miles said calmly. "That's because I'm not on the usual payroll." Now they were listening, but not understanding. "You mean you don't work here?" the buzzcut one asked. "I do, just not the way you assume." Gum chewer tilted his head. "So what? You freelance mop floors?" Miles glanced toward the elevator as a soft chime echoed through the hall. The doors slid open. A man stepped out, dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, rain still glistening on his shoulders. His shoes clicked sharply on the tiles, each step measured, unhurried. He looked like someone who didn't raise his voice because he never needed to. Both guards straightened instinctively, like their bodies registered something their egos hadn't caught up with. The man walked past them without a word, stopping in front of Miles. "You all right?" he asked. Miles nodded. "I'm good, Silas." The man turned toward the guards, his expression unreadable. "Which one of you questioned Mr. Grant?" Neither answered immediately. "I asked you a question," he said, voice low but commanding. We're just doing protocol," the gum chewer said quickly. "We didn't recognize him." And instead of verifying quietly, "You treated him like a threat?" "We didn't mean—" Silas held up a hand, stopping the sentence in midair. "I'm Silas Reed, founder and CEO of this company," he said, turning his body slightly toward them but keeping his eyes locked on their faces. "This man," he pointed back toward Miles, "has had a key to this building since before the foundation was poured." They blinked. "He helped me build this place, before the patents, before the team, when I had nothing but a sketch pad and an idea. He gave me a couch to sleep on and a reason not to quit." The guards stood frozen. "You think a mop in his hand makes him invisible? You think his age makes him weak?" Silas took a step closer. "This man raised me after the fire that took both my parents. He taught me more about dignity in silence than most people learn in a lifetime of shouting." Miles stood still behind him, not embarrassed, not proud, just present. "Consider this your warning," Silas continued, voice sharpening just slightly. "Anyone who disrespects him disrespects the values this company was built on. You've got one chance to think about what kind of men you want to be." The weight of his words settled like concrete. The guards said nothing. They didn't look at each other. They didn't move. Miles bent down, picked up his mop, and said gently, "I'll be in the East Hall." He walked away without a glance back, and suddenly the room felt colder than the rain outside. The security guards didn't speak for a long moment after Miles disappeared down the hall. The silence pressed against the walls, heavier than the rain that continued to mist the glass windows outside. Silas Reed remained still, watching them both with a sharp calm that felt more dangerous than shouting. His presence alone shifted the weight of the room. The taller guard finally broke the silence. "Sir, we weren't trying to cause trouble. We just didn't know who he was." Silas tilted his head slightly, his voice even. "You didn't need to know who he was. You only needed to treat him like a person." Buzzcut stepped forward, his tone cautious. "We're trained to be alert, to check for anything unusual." "You saw an old man with a mop and made assumptions," Silas replied. "That's not alert. That's lazy thinking hiding behind a uniform." The second guard tried to jump in. "We thought maybe he was a risk. No offense, but sometimes people sneak into buildings after hours." Silas raised a finger, stopping him without a word. His eyes narrowed, not in anger, but something colder. Disappointment. "Do you honestly believe a man with a mop bucket is a threat in a secure building with 24 surveillance points?" They looked at each other again, both visibly smaller now than when they had first strutted in. "Let me guess," Silas continued. "You didn't check the system. You didn't review his entry logs. You didn't scan his ID. You didn't call anyone above you. Instead, you cornered him, interrogated him, and tried to make yourselves feel important." Neither man answered. "Let me make something very clear," Silas said, voice low. "Miles Grant doesn't need a title or a salary to belong here. This entire company is standing on years of sacrifices made by people like him. People you don't see because you never bothered to look." The gum chewer took a breath like he was about to speak, then stopped. He knew better now. Silas stepped away from them and walked toward the security console. He tapped a few keys, pulling up the access logs. Miles's name lit up repeatedly. His keycard had been used every night for years, never a single issue, never a complaint. Silas turned back. "You know what's wild? He's never asked for a raise, never complained about his hours, never once disrespected anyone, despite being treated like furniture." One of the guards looked at the floor. "We're sorry. Apologies are meaningless when they're used to escape accountability," Silas replied without hesitation. The elevator dinged behind them. Another executive stepped out, glanced around, and froze at the sight of the CEO standing in front of two security guards who now looked like boys caught stealing. Silas didn't acknowledge the newcomer. He kept his eyes on the two men in front of him. "Miles didn't call me tonight because he was afraid," he said slowly. "He called because he knew I'd tell the truth. That's the kind of trust you earn over decades. You can't demand that with authority. You have to live it." A cleaning cart rolled past in the hallway, another janitor nodding briefly at Silas before disappearing around a corner. The building continued to breathe, indifferent to the drama playing out in its front hall. Silas finally took a slow breath. "Effective immediately, your badges are suspended pending internal review. Leave the building. Someone from HR will contact you tomorrow." They didn't argue. They didn't even try. One removed his badge silently and placed it on the counter. The other followed, chewing slowing, now realizing how foolish the gum seemed in his mouth. They walked toward the exit with stiff legs, neither daring to speak as they passed the same man they had once tried to intimidate. Miles was wiping a set of chrome railings near the north corridor when they passed. He didn't look up. He didn't need to. Silas walked back through the lobby after them, then paused where Miles stood. The older man kept cleaning without breaking pace. "I meant what I said," Silas murmured, "about the foundation. You were there when it was nothing." Miles wiped the last fingerprint from the rail, turned, and met his eyes. "I was there because I believed in you, even when you didn't," Silas nodded once. "Still trying to be worthy of that." "No one gets it perfect," Miles replied. "But you showed up. That matters." A moment passed between them, full of everything unsaid. Then, quietly, Silas added, "I'll walk you to your car later." Miles shook his head gently. "Don't worry about me. I've been walking out of buildings with my head up since before you were born." And just like that, he picked up the bucket, turned the corner, and was gone. The next morning, whispers floated through the upper offices of Argent Tech, like smoke slipping under closed doors. No emails were sent, but everyone seemed to know. By lunch, the details had already filtered into break rooms and elevator chats. 2 night guards had been escorted out. Nobody knew exactly why, but a few had theories. Only a handful knew the truth. Miles walked into the building at 7:45 a.m., carrying the same weathered lunchbox and the same quiet energy. He moved through the lobby unnoticed by most, which was how he preferred it. The floor tiles sparkled. He'd polished them the night before. There was no announcement, no applause, no one waiting at the door. Just the way he liked it. In the conference hall, a meeting was underway. Silas sat at the head of the table, but his mind wasn't on the presentation. He kept glancing at the EE clock, then at his phone. When the meeting ended, he stepped out without speaking to anyone and took the stairs down instead of the elevator. He found Miles in the service hallway near the maintenance office, sorting through a set of mop heads. The air smelled of lemon cleaner and fresh paint. The older man looked up briefly, nodded once, then went back to work. "You never asked me for anything," Silas said, leaning against the doorway. "I didn't come here to collect favors," Miles replied, organizing the tools into labeled drawers. "I came to work. You didn't even let me drive you home. I've been walking that same block since before you had a driver's license. You think I need someone to escort me now?" Silas smiled faintly. "No, I just figured maybe, after everything, you'd take a break. Let someone else carry the load for a day." Miles closed the last drawer. "The weight only matters if you pretend not to feel it. I've been carrying things my whole life. This is light." Silas nodded slowly. "I talked to HR. They'll finish the review quietly, but I'm making some changes." "Hope they're changes that last," Miles said, washing his hands, in the small sink by the door. "Companies forget. People forget faster. They won't forget this. Maybe not you, but some of them, most of them, they only see what's in front of them. If it's not loud, it doesn't count." Silas looked at the floor for a second. "I'm going to put your name on the staff registry. Not as a janitor, as a founding member." Miles dried his hands and chuckled once, the sound more breath than voice. "Why would I need a title now?" "Because I want the next guy in uniform to know that power doesn't always wear a badge or carry a clipboard." Miles leaned against the wall, arms folded. "If you really mean that, start by teaching them to listen. That'll do more than a title ever will." Silas didn't respond. At first, he just nodded, as if that single gesture carried more weight than anything he could say aloud. Later that day, a young intern saw Miles walking through the lobby. She didn't know who he was, but she smiled and held the door open for him. He smiled back and said thank you like he always did, not because he had to, but because it felt right. A few feet away, a junior manager paused and did a double take. He remembered the news from that morning. His expression shifted. He straightened, his posture, but Miles didn't notice. Or maybe he did, and chose not to care. That evening, the building quieted again. Lights dimmed one floor at a time. Miles walked out through the side entrance as the last elevator settled to the ground floor. He stepped into the light rain without an umbrella, the concrete shining beneath his shoes. A breeze lifted the edge of his jacket as he crossed the street, unbothered by the wetness. Behind him, the lobby lights reflected in the puddles like gold on glass. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. Some changes don't need spotlights. They just need someone to hold the line until others catch up. And Miles Grant had always known how to hold the line.